Oakland, California, 1964. A 23-year-old man drove across the Bay Bridge to fight Bruce Lee. He brought 5 witnesses. He thought he was coming to deliver a warning. He had no idea he was about to change martial arts history forever. This is that story. Oakland, California, Broadway Avenue, late autumn 1964, Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. The sun has already set over San Francisco Bay. The streets outside are quiet. Inside, a small martial arts studio, a former upholstery shop converted into a training space. The lights are on. The mats are cleared. The room smells of sweat and wood and something older, something that belongs to a world of closed doors and unwritten codes. 7 people are in this room, maybe 13. The witnesses cannot agree, even decades later, on something as simple as how many people watched. That disagreement tells you everything about what this night became. What everyone agrees on is this: 2 young men are about to fight, and when it is over, one of them will never be the same. One of them is Bruce Lee, 23 years old, 135 pounds, recently moved from Seattle to Oakland with his wife, Linda, 8 months pregnant, who will sit against the wall of this studio tonight and watch everything with the stillness of someone who already knows her husband does not lose. Bruce has opened his own kung fu school here on Broadway Avenue. He has been teaching non-Chinese students, white students. In a world where Chinese martial arts were guarded like blood secrets passed through generations, this is not a small offense. It is a declaration of war against an entire tradition that is centuries old. The Chinese martial arts community of San Francisco has noticed, and they have decided something must be done. The other man in this room has driven across the Bay Bridge specifically because of this. His name is Wong Jack Man, also 23, taller than Bruce, 5 feet 10 inches, a master of Northern Shaolin, Xing Chuan, Tai Chi Chuan. Trained since childhood in the old ways, the ways that are not supposed to leave the community. He arrived in Oakland in a brown Pontiac Tempest with 5 others. He will later say he came with a hand of friendship. He will say this was supposed to be a conversation. The events of that evening will make his version very difficult to believe. The weeks before this night had been building like a storm. Bruce had given a public demonstration in Chinatown, San Francisco. What exactly he said, no one fully agrees on, but the masters heard something that landed like a slap. Some say he called the Grand Masters of Chinatown old tigers with no teeth. Some say he declared openly he could defeat anyone in San Francisco. Whatever the exact words, the community heard a challenge, and they responded. A letter arrived at Bruce's school. The letter was not a request, it was an ultimatum, written in Chinese, signed by men who had trained for 40 years, men who did not write such letters lightly, men who had never needed to write such a letter before, because no one had ever been arrogant enough to require one. The message was simple. Stop teaching non-Chinese. If you refuse, you will be challenged. If you lose, you will close your school and leave. Bruce Lee read every word. He did not close his school. Now it is Tuesday evening. Wong Jack Man stands in the center of the studio. His 5 witnesses line the walls. On the other side, James Lee, Bruce's friend, no relation, stands with a loaded handgun in his waistband, just in case. Linda Lee sits against the wall, 8 months pregnant, hands in her lap, watching, 4 eyes tonight. Wong Jack Man steps forward. He begins the traditional salute, the formal bow that opens every proper martial arts engagement, a gesture of respect, of acknowledgement. he does not finish it. Linda Lee, watching from the wall, will later say Bruce attacked before the salute was complete, an explosive eruption of Wing Chun's straight punches, faster than anything she had ever seen, aimed at ending it in the first 5 seconds. No ceremony, no waiting, no games. Wong Jack Man will tell a very different story. In his only public interview 16 years later, he will say Bruce attacked like a wild animal, that the sounds he made were inhuman, that he could have ended Bruce permanently, but chose mercy. The floor of that studio tells a different story. Wong Jack Man ran. Not a strategic retreat, not a measured step backward. He turned and ran. The room was small, one doorway in, one doorway out. Wong ran through one and back through the other. Bruce chased him, refused to let the distance open, pursued him around the small room with the single-minded focus of a man who had been handed an ultimatum and decided the only acceptable answer was this. Linda Lee will describe the ending with the clarity of someone who has replayed it 10,000 times. Bruce pounced like a springing leopard, brought him to the floor, pinned him, stood over him with his fist raised, and said in Chinese, "Do you give up?" The man on the floor said, "Yes." Bruce made him say it twice.
Stop. Because here is where the story takes its strangest turn. Here is the part no movie ever showed. Here is what happened after Bruce Lee won. He was not satisfied. He walked home that night with his hands swollen from 3 minutes of fighting, from striking bone at the wrong angle, from chasing a man around a room when it should have ended in seconds. He had won, completely, decisively. The man had said yes twice on the floor. But something was broken inside him, and he knew it. He told Linda that night, his voice quiet, his hands wrapped in a cloth. 3 minutes is too long. If there had been 3 of them, I would have been in serious trouble. Wing Chun, everything I have built for 10 years, it is a cage. Tonight I was fighting inside a cage. I nearly paid for it. Linda Lee will write decades later that this was the night the earthquake happened inside Bruce Lee. That from this single evening, he began tearing down everything he had spent his life constructing. That he trained after this with a ferocity that frightened people who knew him well. That he ran miles before dawn. That he questioned every technique, every principle, every tradition he had inherited from men who came before him. He threw out the cage entirely. What he built in its place he called Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. Not a style, an anti-style. A philosophy: absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, add what is specifically your own. It is considered today one of the most important ideas in the history of combat. Modern mixed martial arts, cage fighting, military self-defense systems around the world all carry the fingerprints of what Bruce Lee built in the months after a 3-minute fight left his hands swollen and his mind completely unsatisfied. He won the fight. The fight broke him open, and what poured out changed everything. Wong Jack Man returned to San Francisco. He taught Northern Shaolin in the same city for the next 5 decades, quietly, without cameras, without fame. He gave almost no interviews. When a journalist finally convinced him to speak, 16 years after Oakland, he said only that both men had been young and arrogant, that he regretted the fight, that he wished it had never happened. He never explained why he ran. He died in 2018. He was 77 years old. He took his version of that night with him, the version where he showed mercy, where he held back, where he was not defeated. Whether that version was true, only he ever knew. And now, only he will ever know. His name appears in almost no history books, almost no documentaries, almost no accounts of Bruce Lee's life give him more than a sentence. But without Wong Jock Man driving across the Bay Bridge on a Tuesday evening in autumn 1964, without that letter from the masters of Chinatown, without a 3-minute fight that ended with a man saying yes twice on the floor of a converted upholstery shop in Oakland, there is no Jeet Kune Do. There is no philosophy that changed martial arts forever. There may not even be the Bruce Lee the world came to know. One fight, one night, 2 young men who were both certain they were right. One became a legend. One lived quietly for 50 years and carried a secret to his grave. And between them, a single Tuesday evening in Oakland, behind locked doors, with 7 witnesses or 13, a fight that lasted 3 minutes and changed everything.